Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, and let's figure out what is happening and what we can expect. I'm still a little bit sick, so you might hear some coughing and whatnot. I do apologize in advance, but moving right into it, Tesla closing down the day, down about 1.8%, which will be closing at $269 and a half, really. So compared to the market, Tesla definitely, a bit of an underperformance today, to say the least. I wouldn't say anything, again, also super duper substantial, considering the market was essentially zero. But nonetheless, definitely an underperformance regardless. So what can we make of this? What does this mean? Are we going up? Are we going down? Are we going sideways? What is the play here? Let's try figuring that out. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. And also, of course, this is not financial advice. Make your own decisions and do your own research. And my membership section, by the way, is live. It is down below, the link. If you're interested, $2.99. I share my thoughts with you guys intraday as Tesla moves and whatnot. But so, what can we expect, right? So in my membership section, I did talk about actually, obviously all of this movement today, but main things that I would point out that are, in my opinion, are important is, so there's three things I would say, three things that are important here, right? The first thing that's important, let's go back to the 1 hour for now. It's quite simply that we did, like I said, on Friday, break down out of this. I think we closed this candle right here is where we closed, right? We did break down out of this overall trend upwards that I've been talking about for a while, right? And then obviously, as you can see, we continued to fall through, right? We continued falling today. We had a bit of a pump in the morning, but definitely a bit of a bull trap. And we continued falling pretty aggressively, and we came right down to the first overall support that I have, which again is pretty much this 264, 265-ish area, as low as the gap fill up at about 262. That's like the first major level. And you can see there's a lot of levels underneath, which means that there is a lot of support for Tesla. So even if Tesla keeps falling, there's a lot of areas of potential demand and support that Tesla will be going to, which again, in theory, of course, never know with Tesla. Sometimes this thing is just really crazy, but in theory, it should mean that the move downwards, even if it were to come even further, it shouldn't be, again, in theory, all the way or straight down. Like it shouldn't just be like one massive red candle. We just go from here straight down to like 240, right? Again, of course, in theory, because there is a lot of support right below us, right? For instance, 264, the gap fill even, right? About 260 to 258, right? Then we have 254-ish. Then we have support all the way here, somewhere around 250, then 240, like low 240. A lot of, staircases or little, areas of support. So, we'll see how that actually plays out, right? But that's the first thing, right? The fact that we did break this uptrend ever since this 241-ish level, something to consider. That's not usually a good sign. That's usually, to me, that tells me that the downtrend has probably started. Again, it doesn't mean it has to completely plummet from here. You'll have zigzags, you'll have bounces and whatnot in between, but that's kind of what that tells me. The second thing that's important to understand, excuse me, is going to be the fact that we are, of course, potentially 2 hour looks a little bit better here, but we are potentially in this overall a little bit of a bull flag potentially, right? So you can see from here to this up level over here, you can make an argument that this is potentially a bull flag, right? It's it's a little bit of a wonky one in all honesty. We had a breakout to the top side, then we had a breakdown to today, a little to the downside. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit of a not the best or cleanest looking bull flag I've ever seen in my entire life, but nonetheless potentially a bull flag or pennant or whatever setting up right here. Now the thing I talked about in my membership section is the fact that as long as Tesla holds around 268 and a half, and I said that on this candle right here, but as long as Tesla holds roughly that level, I think there's a decent chance to see some green follow through tomorrow. And I do think that tomorrow there's a decent chance that we will get a bit of a bounce, a little bit of green tomorrow, mainly because we held that level and we're still technically trading within this overall channel potential bull flag or pennant or whatever, right? So that's not a bad sign. But again, as long as Tesla is still within this channel, and especially as long as it's really above this first support level of 265-ish 64, 65, the chances of it potentially still bouncing and potentially, honestly, believe it or not, even still going higher, potentially all the way up here to truly retest this red line. Because in my opinion, we haven't really tested it yet. We got pretty darn close to it, but we haven't really truly came up to it just yet, which would pretty much put Tesla somewhere in the mid to high 280s even, right? So that's the level I would personally be eyeballing, and I still think is actually potentially possible. Like I wouldn't rule that out entirely. Again, I did buy the dip today. I want to make a disclaimer. I did buy the dip, about 10% ish of my portfolio. So I am, I am buying this dip. I did buy it today, pretty much at market close. Actually, I bought it when it touched the bottom of this channel. Obviously, went lower, but I'm not buying here, and I wouldn't buy again until it falls much lower. But I am holding this, and I'll probably hold this for a while. I don't think I'm going to sell this, even if it rallies upwards, unless it gets to like 290 or something like that. Mainly because this is just going to be something I am going to start accumulating on its way down. But we'll see, right? But overall, I definitely would not discount Tesla potentially coming up all the way to this, 290 to high 280s level, mainly because, again, this, could be a bull flag potentially play out. So I'm kind of leaving that scenario open so that if it does, I have, skin in the game. If it doesn't, well, I'm pretty much all cash except for that 10% that I just bought today. So to me, I see it as a win-win regardless of which way we overall go. Now, the one thing that I personally, again, this is just my opinion, I can't shake though, is this absolutely just astronomical bearish divergence on the daily, on the 4 hour, on the 3 hour. Does the 2 hour even have? Even the 2 hour has it. I can't shake this, man. Like I personally, from my experience, I don't like seeing these kind of things. Again, it doesn't mean this, it's the one, indicator to rule them all or anything like that. It absolutely can be completely invalid overall, and it can completely break. There's, 100%. But I personally see, usually, especially on a daily like this, something this obvious, more often than not, I do see this as a pretty massive warning signal, right? As a pretty massive, like, man, you better watch the hell out, because this thing is looking like it's going to collapse at some point, somewhat, potentially even soon. And of course, we have earnings coming up literally in just, a few days really now, right? Middle of next week, so just a week away. So that could be the catalyst that really determines whether or not this, bearish divergence is going to play out, of course, in the bearish aspect. So that's another thing that I am really going to. This is why I'm also not buying aggressively here at all. Like, yeah, we dipped and whatnot, but this is hardly a dip. It's still pretty elevated, and I'm only buying this as a potential, swing trade that I think that we could potentially go all the way up to high 280s. And again, if we don't, I'll hold it. I have no issues at all. I'll just be substantially, much more aggressively buying the dip somewhere around these levels down here, as low as, again, like 215-ish, right? But I really personally, again, if you're wondering where I'm really eyeballing to really start buying the dip and like really start getting a bit more aggressive, at the very least 250s, like minimum 250s to even consider buying again, right? If it's not 250s, I won't even consider buying again. But ideally, I really want to see 240s, and I really want to see like 230s to 220s. Like that's where I really want to see that, right? That's when I'll be a lot more enticed. But otherwise, up here, very, very like, I'm not jumping up and down for it. You know what I mean? I'm not excited to buy the dip here. This would only be strictly like a technical trade, technical buy, nothing more, nothing less, right? But that's overall kind of what I am seeing as of right now. If we go back, to the daily, right, the Bollinger Band, you can see we're still extremely close to the green line, but we are, we're starting to get tight, right? The Bollinger Band on the daily is starting to get tight. It's probably getting pretty tight in the 4 hour as well. Yeah, it got pretty tight over here. We got a bit of a rally, you can see. But, it's starting to get tight in the 4 hour. It's really starting to get tight on the daily. Like this is something I would be very careful about, because usually, especially on the daily, when it gets this tight, and probably it's only going to get tighter if we just continue pretty much going sideways from here. This is where things will start getting interesting, and I personally would not be surprised if ultimately it gets tighter and tighter and continues essentially pretty much not doing a whole lot, more or less trading sideways around this rough-ish level that we're at right now, maybe a little bit lower even. But I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes sideways up until roughly earnings. Could be slightly before, could be slightly after, could be literally the day of, right? But somewhere around earnings. And that's when I think this massive kind of pressure building up right now is going to explode to one direction. Question is, which direction? I personally think, again, I know I hate always sounding like a bear, but it's hard not to be a little bit bearish when it's, this elevated. To the downside. I do think it will be to the downside. That's just my, hunch, which is why I'm not buying aggressively here at all. I'm just kind of nibbling, right? But that's my hunch right now, and that's kind of what I am seeing. The volume is also falling a little bit off a cliff, in my opinion, actually, for Tesla. The volume is definitely pretty low over here. So, that is something else to consider. Could be a lot of, not a lot of enthusiasm right now up until earnings potentially as well, right? People waiting for earnings to come in as well. So, keep that in mind. We, of course, also have the 21 EMA, which is not too far below us, right? So definitely want to see Tesla at the very least tap this bad boy right here. I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen sometime this week, but, we'll see how that actually plays out. The first level you'd have to, really break for Tesla to potentially come down to that 21 EMA, like I said, is going to be this 264, 265-ish level. If we break that, then I think, there's a pretty decent chance we'll come down to that 21 EMA. Otherwise, I do think that there's a chance that this, of course, bull flag will play out and will potentially even go up to 290. So I'm keeping all those options open, right? Because I'm not super confident. This area to me right now is a bit of a gray area. I do think over the next couple of weeks, I think that overall play is going to be to the downside. The part that's a little bit, unsure to me, it's a little bit in limbo land to me right now, is the more shorter term, like for instance, maybe this week and up into earnings is the part that I'm a little bit less more unsure about rather. So, that's why I did nibble on it. So in case we do have that rally, I have skin in the game. And if not, I have substantially more to buy the dip, right? That's kind of how I like to play it. That's just my opinion. That's my strategy. That's my, my play, if you will. So that's more or less what I am thinking, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think down below. We're taking a quick look at the indices as well. You can see SPY, really awkward looking candles, man. I mean, we have a pretty damn bullish candle followed by a pretty ridiculously bearish candle followed by just more sideways action. Very strange movement on SPY. Just very, very wonky. I'm not really sure what to even make of it, right? Same with QQQ. Just what are these candles, man? These candles are something else. Like, it's just full of massive wicks everywhere, like huge wick here, huge wick, right? Just a lot of wicks. So a lot of indecision here, it seems like, for the market. So yeah, something to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely a little bit of indecision here. So we'll see how that plays out. You can also see the VIX, like I said the other day, it broke out and then potentially retested here. I know people say you can't chart the VIX, but it's looking pretty good, right? Charting the VIX has, we broke out this downtrend, came back up, and then came back down, retested it, and so far bouncing off of it. So, we'll see how that comes into play, right? And again, if the VIX does actually continue moving upwards from here, that's usually going to be a not so great sign for the market overall. So that's what I'm seeing, guys. Also keep in mind, don't forget QQQ and SPY also have that bearish divergence on the RSI. You can see, right? It's not really showing a whole lot. If anything, it's pretty much back to the same level up here, but the RSI divergence is really starting to show, right? And Tesla's is just so much more obvious. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.